A business owner came to me a few months ago, and she was closing nearly everyone that she spoke with. But every year, her business still felt like she was starting from zero. Once a client serves was complete, the relationship was basically over. There was no reliable system tracking when the client would need the service again. No real renewal pipeline and no process telling the business who to contact, when to contact, and what needed to happen next. 90 days later, after working with us, that same business had increased their service price by 90%, cut its sales calls in half, and reduced manual work required over from the owner and her team, starting attracting better fit clients and created a pipeline from customers the business had already earned. But the most important change was not the price. It was not the website, and it wasn't simply the software. The most important change was that the company finally gained one reliable view of the entire client process. Before that, the information was there, but it was everywhere. So when someone needed the status of a client, a team member might have to search a spreadsheet, open a document, look through a folder, go through a chain of emails, piece together what was actually happening, what had been received, what's still missing, what had been completed, what needed to happen next. There was no single place showing the truth of that transaction. And the clients felt it too because they would not see what was happening. They would call the company asking for updates. Then someone on the team had to stop working, investigate that file, determine the current status, and report it back. Now, think about that. The business was spending labor simply to explain where the work stood. And once the work was completed, the client would disappear from the operating process because there was no reliable way to track or stay connected, no system telling the team when the client would need the service again, and no structured follow up to bring previous client back at the right time. So every year, the owner was hunting for new business, and previously earned revenue was quietly disappearing from view. It was an operating problem. That is what an executive tax looks like inside of real businesses. It is the owner's time spent answering questions, the team attention spent searching for information, the labor spent repeating updates, and the revenue missed because the company could not see the future opportunity inside existing client base. So here's what we did. And we did not begin with software. We began with how the owner thought about the business. Every client she had already served was also a future renewal opportunity. She just didn't know how to have that customer list. She actually had a pipeline, something that she already owned. The business just did not see it yet. First, we made the pipeline visible. The company could now see every client, where they were in the process, what had been received, what was still missing, what needed to happen next. And when the client would need the service again, then we rebuilt the onboarding and the document collection process. And the team no longer had to reconstruct the transactions from scattered files and email threads. Before, the client had to call to find out what was happening. Now, when the work moves, the status moves with it. A client can log in and see what has been completed, see what is still outstanding, and understand what happens next. This means fewer status calls, fewer interruptions, less manual follow-up, and a better experience for the customer without creating more work for the owner of the team. Then we rebuilt the sales process. The service was underpriced. So we repositioned the offer, raised the service price by 90%, improved the qualification process. The close rate came down to about 45%, but the quality of the clients coming in improved dramatically. Then we redesigned the website so it matched the company she was becoming and not the company that she had been. The message changed, the sales process changed, the operations changed, and the customer experience changed. And the technology, it connected those decisions so the company could execute them consistently. That is the difference. The software did not create the strategy. The software gave the business a way to carry out the strategy without depending on the owner or any employee to manually move every step. And every document request, every payment, and every status update, and every follow up. Now, she happens to run a credentialing company. But this is not really a story about credentialing. It's about maybe you a contractor, an agency, a law firm, a clinic, a consulting company, or any business where information is scattered. Customers keep asking for updates. Previous clients are not being followed up with. And any owner that's still required to hold everything together. Look, the industry can change. The underlying problem does not. We identify the operating logic trapped inside the owner, the team, the spreadsheets, the documents, the email threads. Then we install that thinking across the business, marketing, sales, operations, customer service, all working from the same decisions. Most founders do not know exactly where the executive tax is being charged. They only know that they're answering too many questions, approving too many decisions, fixing too many problems, and carrying too much of the company themselves. The executive tax assessment shows you where the business still depends on you and which part of the company needs to be stood up first. Because getting your time back creates leverage. Making the outcome repeatable creates control. And building a company that continues to create value without depending on you, that creates legacy.